Kirtana ki jai. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnanam Jana-shalakaya Chakshunamilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namashrishtam Manumapi Satriputram Matrasharupam Rupam Tasyagrajamuru Purim Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhikamadhavasam Praptu Yasha Praditya Gripaya Shri Gurum Tammatasmi Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nikhila Shrute Mole Ratnamala Dute Nirajita Padapankajanta Aji Mukta Kulairupasyamanam Paritashtam Harinam Samshrayami Narpitacharim Chidat Karunayavaturna Kalu Shamarpaitamunnatos Balarasam Svabhakti Shrim Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipita Sada Hridaye Kandaresh Purato Vasatrinandana Ajanulambita Bujjo Kanakavadato Sankirtanai Kapitaru Kamalaya Takshu Vishwambharo Dvyabharo Jugadharmapalo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataru Ladini Shakti Swarupaya Gauranga Suridaya Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namastute He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Radhe Vrindavanadhishe Karunamrita Vahini Kripaya Nijupadabja Dasyanmayam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshay Hiptasya Kamaditarangamadhye Kripamai Tvam Shadanam Prapanam Brinde Maste Charanarabindam Brinde Maste Charanarabindam Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitananda ki jai, Shri Shri Brajanath Haladar ki jai, Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Brahma-stuti ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanand. So, good afternoon, evening to all of you present here online as well. So thanks for coming and your time. So we are continuing today with our series of lectures on the Brahma-stuti. Actually, today officially beginning with the Brahma-stuti per se. Today is our third lecture. We have two introductory lectures in which we try to give a little bit of context to the background of the prayers of Sri Brahmaji. And today we will begin with the first verse of chapter 14 and 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. But as usual, I'll make some brief recap of last class and somehow of the first class, since it was also described in the Brahma Mohan Lila and just the point where Brahma began his prayers. But last class we had a second introduction class where we spoke a little bit about the significance and some intricacies connected to Brahma-stuti and Brahma Vimohan Lila. To begin with, we try to explore and unfold the implications of this idea of Krishna as to Bhagavan Sayan, which is so central in the Bhagavatam, which is so central in our Gaudiya Sampradaya, and which is so central in this section of the Bhagavatam in particular, when Krishna is expanding himself and showing Narayan, unlimited Narayans coming from this little one Krishna, if you will, quote unquote, little, and which plays out this idea of Krishna's to Bhagavan Sri, and Krishna is the source of all forms of Godhead, even Narayan, even God himself. Krishna is the source of God. That's a very gaudy idea. No? As I remember once we were speaking in New Jersey, and this idea came that actually God is an aspect of Krishna. No? And one devotee was like, what? Had some epiphany moment. Because generally you may speak about Krishna is God. Krishna is God. No, God is Krishna. No, God is a part, an aspect of Krishna. Narayan is an aspect of Krishna. Krishna is not God. I mean, he's God, but Narayan is God. Paramatma is God. Krishna is something more. He's God beyond God, basically. That's why we say the supreme personality of Godhead. Now, Godhead is here, and the supreme personality is above Godhead, if you will, above the idea of the supreme. And as we mentioned, when supreme with lots of prem are there, as we will see today, the Godhead becomes upgraded in its ultimate form as Krishna, if you will. So Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. This Krishna-stu Bhagavan Swayam is the Paribhas Sutra, or this little aphorism, which is basically dictating and defining everything else that is being said around the Bhagavatam and even other scriptures. That's how far our Goswamis have taken this Paribhas Sutra to show all Vedic literature. The Bhagavatam is the cream and the essence of all Veda. So that implies all Veda is revolving around Krishna-stu Bhagavan Swayam, basically. So again, Sri Brahmaji was witnessing this in motion, the Paribhas Sutra in motion, unlimited Vishnu forms emanating from Krishna. The greatest Aishvarya of the whole Krishna Lila, of the whole Bhagavatam, is depicted in this section of the Bhagavatam. You won't find higher, greater Aishvarya than this one. And the point is, well, the greater Aishvarya is found in Braj, basically. Because the Bhagavatam is speaking about Vaikuntha, about Dwarka, about Mathura, about so many realms. But the highest degree of Aishvarya is found in this section of the Bhagavatam, which happens to be in Braj. So Krishna is exhibiting that. So implying the highest Aishvarya is in Vrindavan. And the Madhurya of Braj, the intimacy of Vrindavan, is only possible because Aishvarya is there at the backdrop, totally buried under layers and layers of intimacy, but Aishvarya is there. But that was allows Madhurya to happen. Krishna is still God, but nonetheless he behaves as the son of Jashoda. He's fully in that personality. He's not like he's calculating, I'm God, but I'll play like the son of Jashoda, so her Vatsalya is pacified. No. He's fully engrossed, if you will, in that sense of self, in that Abhiman, with Jashoda, with his friends, with the gopis, and so on. So also we spoke how this section of the Bhagavatam is presenting to us a very unique portal into the Sakya Bhav possibility, which is one of the main windows of opportunity. We spoke a little bit about how this possibility is present actually in our lineage. It's not some form of, heterodox idea that came in time, but it's right there from the beginning of time, from the very first member of the Sampradaya. Although Madhurya Bhav will be the main current in the Sampradaya, nonetheless, as my Guru Maharaj would like to say, Sakya Rasa is like a supporting role, assisting in this main emotion in the drama of Krishna Lila. And we then, in that connection, we explored how one of the main, very, very, very main important representatives of our Sampradaya in modern times, Srila Prabhupada, had this affinity, and why he left this world by absorbed in translating the Brahma Vimohan Lila, chapter 13. And in terms of tattva, Krishna made him make this statement by living at that point, because in terms of tattva, there's nothing that Prabhupada emphasizes more than Krishna-stu Bhagavan Swayam, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he left right in that chapter where that point is made, again, very clear when Narayans are emanating from Krishna. And in terms of Bhav, Prabhupada had this affinity for Sakya Bhav, so the passing in that moment it implies that portal and through which he entered into what we call Nitya Lila Pravishna. So what else? And we concluded our previous lecture with mentioning that some groups, of course not in our school, but some groups, mostly Balav Sampradaya and here and there Madhva Sampradaya and others, some of them, not all, but consider these three chapters, 12, 13, 14 of the 10th canto as an interpolation, as something that was added in time, which was not part of the original version. And we analyzed some ideas as to why this is actually not possible. How names of Krishna as the killer of Aghasur appear in other sections of the Bhagavatam, referring to that section basically. These same Leelas are described in other Puranas, not only in the Bhagavatam. So that will make those sections in other Puranas also interpolated or what, no? So it's not like this. Many Leelas, Stalis, places of pastimes in Braj nowadays still prominent in connection to those Leelas because they are mentioned. Sridhar Swami, the famous ancient Bhagavad commentator, mentioning the Bhagavatam has 335 chapters. And if you take these three out, it will be 332. And he also says, and many Puranas say, the Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses. So if you take these three chapters, you will end up with 210 less or something. So again, that will create a whole bunch of other problems. Also, we mentioned, of course, some followers of Madhava Sampradaya reject them because Madhvacharya just not commented on them, or because they do not agree with the idea of demons attaining, asuras attaining mukti by being killed by Krishna. But we see many other sections outside of these three chapters with many demons being killed by Krishna attaining mukti, or even Vatsalya Prem like Putana, etc. Some other will argue, well, Brahma was blessed at the beginning of creation to not be affected by the Maya of Bhagavan, but that was concerning Mahamaya in terms of creation of the universes. But here we are speaking about Yogamaya. So Krishna didn't sign that part of the contract, if you will. No? So what else? And we conclude saying, well, and nobody can tell who did the interpolation, the so-called interpolation, when was that made? So we don't have really very much of deep arguments to think in those terms. And again, these three chapters are so important to the whole Bhagavad narrative that if you take them out, I mean, the Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam equation is not fully playing itself out as it does here. So we analyze in that sense how crucial are these chapters, this section. So that's what we saw last class. And since today we will begin with the first verse, let me very briefly, hopefully, go back to the first class very quickly just to remember where we stopped in the Lila in the previous chapter. So Brahma is praying, start to pray here. So as you may recall, first we analyze beginning of creation, Brahma expressing affinity towards Sakya Bhav. Krishna say, okay, Tatashtu, in time that will play out. And then we analyze chapter 12, when Aghasura is killed, and Brahma comes and sees this light entering into Krishna, and he's like surprised what's going on. He kidnaps the boys, the calves. He thinks so. Krishna expands for a year in these replica forms, and Brahma returns and thinks what's going on here. He sees that everything is normal. So he goes back and forth, and he sees that the illusory replicas were in the cave, the other ones were in Braj. And the parents and the cows were loving them so much more because they were Krishna himself without them knowing that. And eventually, as we know, Brahma's head starts to spin, first head, second head, third head. and eventually, Brahma is seeing all these calves and boys, and all of them take this form of multiple Narayans, multiple Brahmas worshipping those Narayans, and Brahma witnessing that. And suddenly all this manifestation disappears, and only Krishna remains with a morsel of food, rice, and looking for the calves and boys. So at this point, Brahma's four heads, who is someone very capable, as we know, on a heady level, especially the architect of the universe, he fell from his swan to the ground of Braj, bathed Krishna's feet with his tears, and full of emotion, and still Bimohan, still confused, starts to pray. So today we are starting there. We're starting with the very first prayer of the Brahma Vimohan Lila. So there it is 40 verses, 40. So I don't know when I will finish this, maybe this year, who knows when, where, no problem. We have eternity to lost and find ourselves there. So in this Brahma Vimohan Lila, just before starting with the first verse itself, as I mentioned, the logic of love is shown by Brahma, the Adiguru of our Sampradaya. The Siddhanta, as I said the other day, that underlies the Bhava. The tattva, the philosophical truths that have to be there as a foundation, so proper ecstatic emotion eventually arises as a result of that, of a practice properly guided by Sambandha Gyan. So the goal of sadhana bhakti is bhava. So we are to engage in sadhana, properly guided by proper conclusions, proper sambandha guiding our avideya, and that in turn will take us to prayojan. So we will see how there's a very interesting sequence, dynamic in the prayers of Brahma. There are 40, so Brahma is being transformed at every prayer, if you will, and getting closer and closer to his ideal of Sakya. Remember, he's taking darshan of the deity of his longing, if you will. So he will begin praying more in the bewildered way and an astonished way, but gradually we will see how his Aishvarya, as he realizes Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Remember, Brahma thought this is an imposter, and now he's realizing Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. He's not an imposter. He's the origin of Narayan. So he's grasping this idea, while he's praying. So we will see his conversion, if you will, his transformation throughout the prayers to the point of expressing his longing for Sakya, with his sadhana being attained maturation at this point, and eventually glorifying the bhava of the Brajavasis and in ecstasy at the very end of the prayers, basically. So this section also is very interesting because it entails someone like Brahma, who is not a Brajavasi. He would like, as because of his prayers point to that, he would like to be a Saka, as we mentioned, but he's not yet. So it's some of those sections, one of those sections in the Bhagavatam, when someone who is not a Brajavasi is in Vrindavan nonetheless, and is awakening to the reality of Vrindavan, and having made some gross mistakes, starts to pray, like Indra, for example, after Govardhan Lila. It's a different situation, different example, but at one point Indra also wanted to kill all the Brajavasis, as we know, and eventually he realized what was going on, and he offered prayers as well. So these are sections in the Bhagavatam which include people who are not from Braj, who have an experience of Braj, and who start to pray appreciating Braj and hankering for that, like Uddhav. Eventually, when he also went to Vrindavan, he entered there as a foreign person, but somehow he left Braj transformed, basically, experiencing a conversion. So this is an important point to have in mind throughout the series. Again, here the Gaudiya Siddhanta, Gaudiya Tattva is established, but it's in connection to the bhava that the characters here, like Brahma, are experiencing themselves as they get closer and closer to Vrindavan, to the Braja Bhava experience. The more they're getting closer to that, they pray and they express the Siddhanta in connection to that goal of that particular bhava in Vrindavan, which is our goal as members of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. And ultimately, as we will see, they will express their own longing. I want to go there. I want to be born here. I want to enter this situation. So again, this will become more and more apparent as we get closer to the last verses of the Brahma-stuti. There will be this sequential unfolding or development. But before Brahma will establish the very foundation of pure devotion, like making this point, if you don't have that clear, do not expect to enter the land of pure devotion. If you don't have a clue what is pure devotion, first you have to conceptually appreciate that. I like to think sometimes of sadhana bhakti as a theoretical appreciation of bhava bhakti. We are not in bhava bhakti, but we can start to appreciate bhava, the bhava of those who have it, of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, of the great personality, to learn to understand, to appreciate that bhava in theory where we are. We cannot just jump and imitate that, but we can study and appreciate. Studying the Bhagavatam is basically, to begin with, we are witnessing the Brajavav and starting to somehow make sense of that and make that our prospect. That's Raga Anuga, to follow the emotion of one of those inhabitants. So first you have to catch those emotions, make sense of them, if you will, to the point that I want to become one of them. It just has to begin somewhere. So Brahma will start to present this underlying Siddhantic foundation that underlies, again, the Braja Bhakti project, if you will. And Brahma will be expressing lots of chamatkar, lots of like astonishment, well, awakening to this reality, what's going on here. And also realizing who is Krishna. Because Brahma saw Krishna at the beginning of creation, and he had some idea, okay, this is Krishna, this is my guru, this is my father. But now he's realizing Krishna is something more of what I thought. And he's realizing that in proximity to the Vraja Bhav. You follow my point? Mm-hmm. The more that he becomes aware of the Bhav of the Vraja Bhas and how Krishna corresponds with that Bhav, he realizes, oh, I didn't know this face of Krishna. This is what happened to Uddhav. Uddhav was a very, in one sense, even more intimately connected with Krishna. He was his personal minister, secretary, and friend, and so many things in Dwarka. And so he had acquaintance. I know Krishna in one sense. But when he went to Vrindavan and met Nanda, Yashoda, Gopis, he realized, oh, they have a type of love. They see Krishna in such a way. They love Krishna in such a way. I don't know that Krishna. I never saw Krishna that way. I never felt for Krishna like this is a new Krishna for me. He was like rediscovering his own Istadev, basically. You follow? So he was convinced, I know Krishna. Yeah, he knows, of course, but there are so many layers of unknowing is loving, basically. No? So to Brahma, on his own level, Brahma is discovering a new Krishna here. He met Krishna at the beginning of creation, particular version of him, if you will, but now in Vrindavan and witnessing the Vraja Bhav, that's like, this Krishna I do not know, the one who corresponds with this love. And that will be clear along these prayers, how Krishna, Vraja Krishna in particular, as I like to put it, is a byproduct of the love of the Vrajavasis. It's a consequence. You take out the love of the Vrajavasis, there's no longer Vraja Krishna. You will have Narayan in Vaikuntha, Ram in Ajodhya, Brahman, Nirvishesh. But you put Vraja Bhav, and the absolute corresponding with that Bhav is called Vraja Krishna. So you cannot separate the absolute and the love that somehow, poetically speaking, carves that form of the absolute. The absolute has many forms, and all of them are carved out of a particular type of affection that he basically lives to reciprocate with. Krishna said, I live for that. As you worship me, I will manifest accordingly. I will reciprocate accordingly. So this is what we will see. And before starting with the verse, I'm sorry if today I extend myself a little bit more than usual. I hope not to do so that much. I'd like to share a brief idea of which will be like the format of the classes, just to have a notion. Sorry, there's one message. So to begin with, of course, as usual, we are making some brief recap of the previous class. Then we will share the Sanskrit verse, Sanskrit shloka. Then we will go to the translation of the verse in English translation. Then we will try to explain the word by word of each verse. And then I will start to comment on each verse by first of all invoking Bhavanubad that my Guru Maharaj wrote. Bhavanubad is kind of like a retelling of the verse in one's own words, by also like adding some elements coming from other commentaries and one's own insights. So that's generally called Bhavanubad. So my Guru Maharaj, he wrote Bhavanubad to each one of the verses of the Brahma-stuti, which will be published in his next book, Sakyamandal, or Circle of Friends. But he very generously shared that with me and with all of you. Preview. We have a trailer, yeah. Yeah. But he gave me some caution and advice in that connection. Not caution, but just some clarification that he asked me to extend to the audience. So I'd like to share what he told me in that point, because I think it's a very important point. He says, the spirit of the commentary that he wrote is from the vantage point of Sakyarasa. And I am confident that this is the most accurate perspective from which to view these prayers, even as they contain tattva applicable to all of the Vraja rasas. Of course, the bhava here that I detect is underpinning the tattva and is thus subtle, while the tattva itself is overt. So if you are going to comment on these prayers, here I am doing that, keep this in mind and inform your audience of this with reference to my commentary. So here I am just trying to follow his advice. So that's an important point. No? There overtly will be, most of the prayers will be connected with tattva, siddhanta, or philosophy, but it's interesting to know which is the underlying bhav that is in Brahma's heart while he is presenting this tattva and siddhanta. So I will start sharing this. I will start after sharing the verse, sharing this Bhavanubad of my Guru Maharaj, and then I will share some other commentaries which are central to this verse and to the Bhagavatam itself. Sridhar Swami, Sanatan Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, and another Gaudiya Acharyas. I mean, in this case, Srila Prabhupada has not commented on the Brahma-stuti because he passed away one chapter before, if you will. So his disciples have commented, which mostly their commentaries are in connection with the Acharya's commentaries, basically. So I won't be mentioning every single time who said what. I will try to mention very time, but just to keep some flow, I will be invoking the different ideas based on the commentaries and some insights that may come by their mercy. I won't be reading the totality of each Acharya commentary because that may be too much. We may need like a whole series for one verse for 40 classes or something. But I'll try to go to the most significant points, also because some commentaries are repeating things from the other commentaries. Sridhar Swami, which is the most ancient Bhagavad commentator for us, we find in Jiva Sanatana Goswami many points found in Sridhar Swami. Most of the points of Jiva Goswami's commentary are present in Sanatana Goswami's commentary, and so on. And my Guru Maharaj in his Bhavanubad also is including many of these points from the other commentaries. So I will try to not be like repetitive, although some points need repetition, and we will try to to emphasize them as much as we can. So that said, let's begin with the first verse. You have there some printed letter. I will copy this also and paste here in the chat section for those online. So let's see. Sorry, 1 second. It seems that it's too long of a sentence to share in the chat. So I'll share something smaller. Let's see if it works. Yeah. 1 and 2. I'm putting Sanskrit and putting the okay. So okay. So the Sanskrit says like this. The meter or chanda of this verse and many other verses here is called Basanta Tilak. So different meters, different melodies. I mean, I don't want to torture you with all these technicalities, but this is the name of the meter here, Basanta Tilak. So it begins saying Sri Brahma Vacha. Sri Brahma said, to put the context, this will be spoken by Brahma. And it says like this. I'll repeat in Sanskrit, and then we will go to the translation. No midyati brabhapushi tada bambaraya gunjavatam saparipichal sanmukhaya banyashraje kavala betra vishana verno lakshma shriye mridupade pashupangajaya. So the translation, it says, Brahma is saying here, 1 second. I bow down to you, O worshipable one, who art the son of the cowherd Nanda, with soft feet, a cloud-complexioned body, and lightning-colored clothes. Your beautiful face is effulgently framed with earrings made of gunja berries and decorated with an ornament of peacock tail feathers. You wear a garland of forest flowers, and you look so sweet, holding yogurt and fruits in one hand, a flute, horn, and prodding stick in the other. So, Bhagavan Sri Krishna ki jai, Sri Brahmaji ki jai. It's a very nice depiction. This is kind of a very classical, what Jiva Goswami will call Mantramaya Upasana, which is this type of verses that kind of give us like a still picture in which we can focus our meditation. He speaks about Mantramaya Upasana and about Swarasiki. Mantramaya Upasana, he compares like a still picture. Like if you have seen a movie and you put pause, and that's the scene, like one painting, if you will. Still picture you can focus and meditate in. And Swarasiki, and that's to begin with, if you will. And the more you absorb yourself in that particular still picture, the movie starts to move to play, no? And you are carried away by the different dynamics of the lila, and you're actually serving there. That's Swarasiki. So this is one famous verse which we receive this ideal depiction of Krishna with his very defining elements, no? Like the peacock feather and the complexion like the cloud, the pitambara, the lightning-like colored yellow cloth, he being the son of Nanda Maharaj, and again holding some morsel of food in one hand. That's, remember what Brahma is seeing at this present moment after all this Aishvarya manifestation disappear. Krishna is standing there and Brahma starts to pray to him. So let's go briefly through the word by word meaning, and then we try to say something more. Yeah. Sri Brahma Upacha, of course, means Sri Brahma said. Nomi, so that's interesting. The very first word is Nomi, which has another word of saying Namo, Namaha, Namaste, which I offer pranam, I offer praise. No? So it's Brahma-stuti, the praises of Brahma, the prayers of Brahma. So Nomi Idya. Idya means almost worshipable one. So we'll see here there's a considerable degree of Aishvarya. Because again, Brahma is awakening to the reality. Krishna is still Bhagavan Swayan. Some minutes ago thought he's an imposter. And now he's realizing he's the God of gods and God beyond God. So he's expressing his Aishvarya by Nomi, Idya. All these words are full of Aishvarya. Nobody in Vrindavan will tell Krishna Nomi, Idya, or any of these weird things. No, I offer praise to you, O most worshipable one. And maybe in jest, in joking, no, like with Krishna, but not seriously. But Brahma is very serious here. So Nomi Idya te means unto you. Now, O most worshipable one, unto you I offer praise. Abra Bapuse. And who are you now comes like the detailed definition. Abra Bapuse means whose body is like a cloud. No? Depicting the Ghana Shyam, the color of Krishna's body. Tadit Ambaraya. Tadit Ambaraya means whose garments, whose clothes is lightning. Actually, the verse means whose body is a cloud. But actually, the idea is like a cloud. Whose clothes are lightning. They are like lightning. Sanskrit uses this type of expression. So the color of your clothes is like lightning. Gunja Avatamsa, who has ear ornaments made of gunja berries. Again, very defining attributes that you will find only in Krishnas, you will see. Paripicha. Paripicha means peacock feather, the ornament of peacock tail feathers, basically. He has an ornament of peacock tail feathers. Lasat Mukhaya, whose face is shining or resplendent. I remember, try always to keep in mind Brahma's emotional situation. He's not saying just like officially, he's crying and totally experiencing and conversion in this moment and having Krishna after all that he saw. Each of these words is loaded with spiritual emotion. Banyasraje means he's wearing a forest garland, basically. Banya means from the forest, Raje means garland. Vanamali also, he's the one who wears Vanamala. Kabbalah, he has a morsel of food, remember, in his hand, probably left one. Betra refers to stick. Krishna has a cow herding stick that he uses for herding the calves, in this case, calf herding stick. Bishana means a buffalo horn, how is it in English? Bugle, Bugle. Buffalo horn bugle. So that's also there. Brahma is appreciating all these like defining characteristics of him. Venu, I think you know what does it mean? The flute. Lakshma means characterized by. And that applies to all the things that were mentioned. You are defined, characterized by all these defining items. Shriya means whose beauty. I'm giving the general meaning of each word. As we will see, our acharyas will, as Sanskrit lends itself out to that, there's many possible other meanings to each word. But I'm giving the basic official one here in the word by word. So Shriya means whose beauty. Mridu Pade means whose feet are soft. Pade means feet and Mridu means soft. Pashupa means of the cowherd, referring to Nanda Maharaj. And Angajaya means unto the son. So the son of Nanda Maharaj. Unto that, again, I offer Nomi, praise. And to he who is the son of Nanda Maharaj, who has, again, soft feet, whose beauty is unparalleled, who is characterized by all these defining attributes, I offer my pranam to him. So again, Brahma is awakening to the reality of Krishna, of Krishna's two Bhagavan. So this is the very first verse. I'll read the the brief commentary of my Guru Maharaj. I'll maybe comment some things in between. Maybe stop to take a breath after each paragraph because we will require some of that. And then we will go to some of the main commentators. So he's calling his Bhavanubhat Bhaktivedanta Bhavanubhat. So he says like this. Brahma begins his prayers by respectfully glorifying the form of Krishna as he appears before him, expressing his desire to attain that prem of which this particular form is the object. The Vishaya Alambana Vibhav of Sakyarati. No? Here's some terms coming from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami when he analyzes the 5 elements of rasa. One of them being Vibhav, divided into Alambana, Udipana, and then Vishaya, Ashraya. I don't want to enter into details here. But Vishaya Alambana Vibhav means basically Krishna is the perfect object of love for Sakyarati, which is the prem that Brahma is longing for. So try to imagine this. You have a desire for a certain type of love, and the perfect ideal form that corresponds with that love is appearing before you, finally. So Brahma is saying that. Brahma didn't see at the beginning of creation that yet, because his own desire for Sakyarati was not that mature. So Krishna was not revealing in a correspondingly mature form. But now, Brahma's sadhana took him to the point of maturity. So Krishna's the corresponding ideal form for his bhav, is appearing in front of him. This is the form he's describing in this verse. First, Brahma describes Krishna's form in terms of its sham complexion, comparing it to a soothing rain cloud. His body wrapped in the golden dress of a cowherd that resembles lightning. Krishna's form is, of course, further illumined by the prem of his eternal associates, and as such is like a rain cloud of love showering down upon his thirsty earthly sadhakas. No? So he's adding that, okay, Krishna's form is of this color, no? Cloud, body's clothes are lightning. So all these poetic analogies connected to heaven, no? You have the clouds, you have lightning, and the only thing that is missing is rain. So here is mentioning, no, Krishna is surrounded by prema madhurya, by the type of sweet love coming from his associates, and in that way he's reciprocating with the love of his devotees. So in that sense, he's like a abundant. I mean, he's a dark cloud, and exactly the color of Krishna's hue is connected to the cloud which is about to downpour torrential rain, if you will, and that has to do with mercy and love. No, so here my Guru Maharaj is completing the equation. Okay, there is cloud, there is lightning. Where is the rain? In the form of the loving interaction. How Krishna reciprocates with his thirsty earthly sadhakas, and sometimes compared to the Chataka birds who are just like waiting for living upon the water coming from the rains. So in this way, Paritranaya Sadhunam, Krishna says in the Gita. No? The main reason why Krishna comes to this world he said many things, no? To protect my devotees, to chastise the impious, to establish Dharma. But the first one is the most important, Paritana Sarana. Protect my devotees doesn't mean just, I don't know, there may be physically attacked by some asuras, but mostly I come for those sadhakas who are so mature in their bhajan that they can no longer sustain their life in separation from me. So they need protection. And protection is I will come to their lives and I will appear in front of them. So that's why the main reason why Krishna is coming. For those thirsty earthly sadhakas, if you will. And Brahma is at this point, basically. He's so mature in his bhajan, Krishna is coming to give him mercy. So it continues, the next paragraph, one more. However, these symptoms that I had mentioned now, hue, the color of the complexion and the cloth, since these are also features of Narayan, he has the same hue, he has the same color of cloth, dark complexion and golden dress, since these are features of Narayan, would not such praise be more appropriately offered to Narayan himself? Are not Krishna's complexion and dress properly understood those of Narayana? To dispose of this doubt, Brahma then seeks to distinguish Krishna from Narayana and assert the superiority of his form by praising Krishna's forest ornaments, his gunja-berry earrings, the flowers in his hair and over his ears placed there with the prem of his sakas along with his forest flower garland, which are not found in Narayan, these flower forest ornaments. Narayana is not so ornamented with intimate fraternal love, and as such lacks the sweetness of Krishna. So my guru was making the point, yes, Krishna has forest ornaments that Narayan doesn't have, but actually the real ornament is the love of his devotees who are putting those things in Krishna's body. He's adorned by the love of his devotees, basically, by the sakas who are decorating Krishna with flowers and garlands. At this time, again, remember, Krishna at this point is not yet relating with the gopis in romantic interaction yet. He's too young for that in the unfolding of the Leela. So these type of things are coming from Krishna's sakas. So in that way, Narayan, with, of course, all due respect to him, he's not adorned by that type of love because there is no Sakya Bhava in Vaikuntha, basically. In that sense, the superiority of Krishna above Narayan starts to be established from verse 1, the ontological superiority of Krishna above Narayan, which Brahma is realizing here. So, nor is Narayan crowned with Krishna's peacock feather that Brahma also praises, a crown representing both head, knowledge, its eyes, because the peacock feather seems to have an eye, so that has to do with the knowledge and head, and heart love, its beauty. The peacock feather is very aesthetic. It has to do with beauty and heart and love. So the two things are combined in the peacock feather, heart and head, if you will. The feather's eyes are wise in that they are blinded by love to find it fault. Such is Krishna, known more for mercy than any other form of himself. So that's the blindness of love. Like my Guru Maharaj quotes, the mother will call his blind son Padmalochan, beautiful lotus-eyed, although he's blind. But she loves his son, so she's blind to that blindness, basically. And my Guru Maharaj ends with, that doesn't end yet. He puts a footnote here. Interesting point. He says, although Krishna's transcendental eroticism has not yet manifested in the pages of the Bhagavatam at this point of the Leela, Krishna's peacock feather also represents his romanticism. For as the peacock raises his colorful feathers, dancing in courtship as if looking in all directions for love, so too does Krishna look in all directions for Radha and dance under her influence. I think I was with you here, I don't remember, that we mentioned how even if you pay attention to how the peacock feather exposed, the name of Radha is included there. So Krishna is keeping her name above his head at every moment. Love is above God. One last paragraph. Brahma also asserts that while majestic Narayana has 4 hands, Krishna has 2. And as indicated by the fact that in his left hand Krishna held cowherd yogurt rice, so it was in his left hand, stolen from his friend's plate and a herding stick in his right hand, this dvibhuj, or two-handed form of Gopal Krishna, is more charming, affording his devotees a variety of love not available in Narayan's abode. Brahma thus praises Krishna's hands and the items they hold, as well as his soft, sweet feet, which, due to insufficient body weight and underdeveloped markings on his soles during his Kumar age, leave no distinct footprints in the forest. So at this point, Krishna's body is not leaving footprints yet. When he's more heavy in age and in weight, those footprints and the markings of the footprints will be there. And all Brajavasis will keep all those footprints in such a way that they are always there for them to as udipana, as a stimulant. Brahma also praises Krishna's horn and flute, and then distinguishes Gopal Krishna from Vasudeva Krishna of Mathura by praising him as this cowherd son of Nanda, Pasupanga Jaya, with intense longing to attain his company as a cowherd friend. So that's again the context. No? Brahma longs for Sakyabhav, and he concludes this first verse by glorifying Krishna as, you are the son of Nanda Maharaj. Narayan is not the son of Nanda Maharaj. If you will. And even Krishna, in other forms, he's not known as the son of Nanda Maharaj. But Vasudeva Krishna, Mathuresh Krishna, Dwarakesh Krishna. But we see which is the focus of Brahma here. VRAJA Krishna in Sakyabhav. So that's the end of my Guru Maharaj's Bhaktivedanta Bhavanubhat, or commentary on this verse. And I will, with your permission and hopefully generous time, we have some minutes, I'll try to explore and unfold part of this content through taking the hands of our Purva Acharyas also in their commentaries. So as I mentioned, this verse is a very classical depiction of Krishna and his main defining attributes. And this is not the only verse that says that. So I would like to mention briefly some other verses that you will also find a very similar description. To begin with, in Gopal Tapani Upanishad, you can see that in the first part, verses 9 and 10. You will see something similar there. But mostly I would like to concentrate on two other verses that come in the Bhagavatam as well. Not the same verse as we spoke the other day, that there are identical verses in the Bhagavatam. In this case, they are not identical, but they are similar. To begin with, interestingly, this verse that we are studying today is also invoked in the Gaur Lila in different occasions. No? For example, when Mahaprabhu, when Srivas Thakur was worshipping his Narasimha deity in his house, Srivasangam, at one point Mahaprabhu comes and starts to knock on the door because the door was closed and Srivas Thakur was worshipping. He closed the door and Mahaprabhu knocked and opened the door. He started to speak like roaring. No? That one you are worshipping is calling you here, he was saying, no? in almost Narasimha spirit. and Srivas Thakur opens the door, Mahaprabhu is showing this part and tells in Aishvarya Bhav to Srivas, offer me prayers. Interesting. And interestingly, this is the verse that Srivas Thakur offers in praise. Yeah. No? Because you may say, well, he's speaking in Narasimha spirit, but he's not offering praise to Narasimha. He's offering praise to VRAJA Krishna. Of course, we know who is Srivas Thakur, as we mentioned. No? Srivas Thakur is Madhu Mangal. No? Interestingly, Braja Lila. And Madhu Mangal is Priyanarma Sakta of Krishna, very intimate friend. No? And this verse, of course, is spoken by someone with that same affinity. Because again, when a devotee in Sakyabhav sees even Narasimhadev, he will see, he's a manifestation of my Braja Krishna. He's not creating a dichotomy. So he's praising him according to that particular bhav. And interestingly, also in another section of Gaur Lila, this verse is quoted when Nityananda Prabhu first appears among Mahaprabhu's associates. As you know, he joins them a little bit later than the rest. And Nityananda appears as, as Avadut, difficult to understand. So Mahaprabhu always is trying to make sure that nobody misreads Nitai, misunderstands him. Mahaprabhu is always taking care that Nitai behaves properly and that everyone understands his behavior, which is kind of inverted role than in Krishna Lila. In Krishna Lila, Balaram Nityananda is taking care that Krishna is not misbehaving. In Gaur Lila, Krishna's Mahaprabhu is taking care that Balarama's Nityananda is not misbehaving, and that others are understanding him properly. So at one point, where everyone was seeing Nityananda Avadut-ness, he wanted everyone to have it clear who is Nityananda. So he asked Srivas Pandit again, recite the verse so others understand which is the position of Nityananda. So Srivas Pandit again recited this verse. No. Sorry. He recites another verse, sorry. But it's a similar verse to this one, which is fifth verse of the Venu Gita, chapter 21 of the Barhapidam Natavara Bapu Karnayu Karni Karam, a very famous verse. Now I will go to this because this verse that Srivas recited here is almost similar to today's verse and another verse, 3 verses that appear in the Bhagavatam. So let me briefly mention those 3 verses, just for if you like to go through them. So one will be found in all of them in 10th canto. One of them is found in 3rd chapter, 22nd verse, when the Dvijapatnis, the wives of the Brahmins that were engaged in the yajna, you know the story, that they were not willing to feed Krishna's friends, and eventually their wives did. So at one point they offered, I won't enter into each one of the verses because it may take too long, but you can do your research, 10, 23, 22. So they praise to Krishna, they praise to Balaram at one point. But of course, they are not in the position to relate to them as I don't know, the Vraja Gopikas, for example. Interestingly, they are Brahmanis by birth. And interestingly, Krishna, although in some way he breaks all rules of Varna Ashram in the Lila, he keeps following some points. And in this case, he will say, I cannot associate intimately with you because you are Brahmanis and I'm Vaishya. No? So that's not a fitting combination according to Varna Ashram sensibilities, if you will. We are different caste. Yeah. Yes. Caste. So these Dvijapatnis are somehow standing on the borderline between Aishwarya and Madhurya. It is said that they live in the border between Mathura and Vrindavan. So that geographical borderline also speaks about their inner borderline in Bhava. A little bit like this, a little bit like that. So they behold Krishna's beauty, but according to their own sweet mood. So you can see the verse, they will be mostly praising Krishna in connection to these defining attributes of him, peacock feather, flute, the cloth, the complexion. But again, in each verses, there is the mood of who speaks the verses. So a second verse very famous in this connection, maybe the most famous, is this one from the Venu Gita, which the gopis, Sukadev Goswami is mentioning this verse in the context of presenting the Venu Gita of the gopis, the song of the flute. So basically the gopis are saying this same thing here, like Krishna has peacock feather, has flute, is with his friends entering the forest. Actually, this painting is basically depicting, this famous painting is depicting that verse. Barhapidam Karnayo Natavara Bapu Karnayo Karnikaram. So you are king of dancers, you are Karnayo Karnikaram, you have flowers in your ears, Vibrat Basa Kanak, Kapisam Bayayanti Chamal, you have the Vaijayanti garland, and you are playing your flute, Vrindaranya Sapada Ramanam Pravisa Gita Kirti. You are entering the forest accompanied with your friends who are engaged in Kirtan. So the gopis are visualizing this while hearing the flute of Krishna in the distance. So I remember we gave a very nice, I think we needed 2 lectures to explain that verse in our Venu Gita series in Madhuban, like a few months ago. But for those who would like to go into the details of this verse, there are a lot, those classes are there. And then finally, we have this verse that we are studying today, when Brahma is again expressing some majesty, some Aishwarya, as I mentioned, mixed with this. Of course, there's awe and reverence, and again, his longing for Sakya is his budding longing is blossoming more and more. So all these influences are playing themselves out at this point. And as we will see first, we will see a big proportion of Aishwarya here. Again, Nomi, which means praise or obeisances, Vidya, which means supremely worshipable object. Arguably in these 3 verses, here is when we find the most Aishvarya, no? In comparison to the Dvija Patnis, in comparison to Sukadeva and the Brenu Gita. Because, as my Guru Maharaj mentioned, Brahma is accustomed to worship Krishna. There's one manifestation of him in Brahmalok, Mahapurush, sometime called Yajnabhuk, who only eats by yajna, as we mentioned. And now he's realizing, oh, that form that I was worshipping in Brahmalok, that I long to relate to in Sakya, is different from the one I was. I mean, the ultimate corresponding form to my budding sentiment is different from the one I was worshipping in Brahmalok. So Brahma is realizing the object of his affection here, and how to say, he's having like a slight apprehension in the sense of, oh, I'm seeing Krishna in this way here now, and I'm feeling like this. I'm feeling attracted to love him like a friend, if you will, but I'm accustomed to something else. I'm used to worship him, Brahmalok, with certain rituals and awe and reverence. So Brahma is praying and he's wondering, like, I'm hoping I'm saying the right thing here with all of these things I'm saying. Basically, Brahma in this verse is saying, Krishna, you are beautiful. I love you. But also he's wondering, is it right to say so? Because again, the standard of worship in Brahmalok, etc., is more like formal. But now he's facing VRAJA KRISHNA Vrindavan and feeling this call in Sakya, like, oh, you're beautiful in this form. I feel, I love it. I would like to, but it's okay to say that. Something. So Brahma is in this apprehension, this time, in the midst of this situation. No? And as we will see, as the prayers evolve, his Aishvarya is turning more and more to intimacy, to longing. Anyhow, so let's go. I want to mention that regarding to these other two verses of the Bhagavatam. Let's make a brief recap of some of the main points of the commentators, with your permission. So let's begin with Sridhar Swami, the ancient commentator here. So he will begin saying that in the 14th chapter, Brahma still puzzled. Remember, Vimohan, still his four heads are spinning. Brahma still puzzled after seeing the wonder and unable to determine exactly what happened. Because again, he's starting to figure out what's going on here. He's praising Krishna. So still bewildered, he's praising Krishna. Not fathoming the Lord's glory and trembling out of fear due to the offense he committed, because he's becoming aware, I committed aparad to the form of Bhagavan. I consider that like an imposter-like form, and I'm realizing that form. So Brahma is speaking here to glorify Krishna only as much as he could understand him till now. Again, he's realizing Krishna in different levels along the different verses. So he will gradually it's more to understand for Brahma, so he becomes upgraded to a Brajavasi position, if you will. He has not reached that standard yet, but getting closer and closer. We'll speak about that at the end of the prayers, and we'll see how eventually Brahma reached his ultimate purpose by being born as Haridas Thakur in Gaur Lila. Haridas Thakur is called Brahma Haridas. So to say that Brahma, who has a very high position, by the offense to Krishna's form here, he was born as an outcast in Gaur Lila. And he offended the form, as my Guru Maharaj will say. He offended the form of Krishna here by considering it like hoax. But it's still, although the form was offended, the name of Krishna still remained with Brahma as Haridas Thakur, and remained a lot to the point of being the Namacharya. So he took the name, he fully embraced the name, and he realized everything else and attained his longing there. I'd like to share some words from Srinath Chakravarti. He's a very interesting personality and commentator. As I mentioned, there are many alternate meanings to the verses and to the words. Sanskrit lends itself out to multiple interpretations, and our acharyas play a lot with this, and create lots of rasa, basically lots of relishment of all the implications present here. And of course, the way of fully fathoming this is to know Sanskrit, and then you really relish that. But I'll try to share as much as I can and as much as we can relish by not having to know Sanskrit, by going through the translations, and to a certain level at least. So Srinath Chakravarti is saying, the object of the verb, tuam means you, needs to be added here. The word you is not here. So technically speaking, that's missing. But Srinath Chakravarti say, yeah, it could be considered like a technical fault, but actually, since that omission is connected to some part of Brahma's emotion at the moment, it's actually an ornament. It's not a fault, because it's speaking about how he's feeling there. So Brahma couldn't say it, says Srinath Chakravarti, on account of trembling out of consternation. Like when Arjuna was saying the Vishwarup in the Gita, there are a few verses which are missing, lacking some syllables. And technically speaking, they are not completing the meter. But the commentators say, no, this is happening because Arjuna is so astonished, he's speaking wrongly. But wrongly, quote unquote. I mean, actually that's serving to broadcast his emotion at the moment. So that's an ornament. It's not a fault. So again, remember, Brahma is the most worshipable person in the world, the highest position here. And Brahma did not consider Krishna the most worshipable Lord when he thought this is an imposter. So now he's realizing all that. So there's place for consternation. There is place for further bimohan, if you will. And remember, Brahma Bhuvanaloka, the highest possible post on all the multiverse. Let's go to Sanatana Goswami in his Brihad Vaishnava Toshani. He says that Brahma here implies the following. He gives like his own version of the verse. O praiseworthy one. Again, Nomi, Idya. That is, only you, neither Brahma nor Vaikuntanath, Narayana, nor any other avatar of yours are worthy of being praised, because avatars and others were seen in you, Para Brahman, today. Therefore, I praise you. For what purpose, says Sanatana Goswami? Only to attain you. So basically, Sanatana Goswami makes his point. Brahma is realizing, oh my God, only you are worthy of praise. I mean, I'm the most praised person on the planet, Brahma says, but now in comparison to you, I mean, I'm nothing. Even Narayan, in comparison to you, are all their avatars. Only you are worthy of praise. Of course, there's an emotion here. He's not offending other avatars. We have to understand also the emotional context. It's like when Prabodhananda Saraswati mentioned, I think it's Chaitanya Chandramrita, like he says, you have to understand the emotional context. He's saying, who cares that Varaha came and lifted the earth? Who cares that Matsya did what he did? Who cares? Now Mahaprabhu came and he's given this thing to the world. Who cares for any other avatars? So we have to be careful. I mean, if we imitate that, we maybe offend those forms. But he's saying that out of bhava, in further appreciation of that. So somehow, on another level, Brahma is saying this same thing. You are the only worshipable thing. Nor me, nor Narayana, nor any other form. This is the form. You are the source of all avatars. Because I've seen just some minutes ago, all these forms coming from your form. Now, remember, he has this fresh realization, epiphany he has just some minutes ago. Narayana is coming from Krishna. And that's why I'm praising you, Sanatana Goswami say. And if someone will ask, but why the praise? And he replies, just to attain you. And again, to attain you in a particular way, in Sakyabha, not just generic attainment, but I want you in a particular way. So we praise Krishna so we can continue praising Krishna after we have attained him, something like that. Let's go to what Srila Jiva Goswami has to share with us today. He says, this is coming from Krama Sandarbha, which is like a seventh Sandarbha, if you will, when he kind of compiles what he mentioned in the 6 Sandarbhas in connection to different sections and verses of the Bhagavatam. Determining that the lotus feet of Krishna were the highest goal, Brahma begins to praise that form. In Anucheda 56 of the Bhagavad Sandarbha, also Jiva Goswami quotes this verse, and the title of that section is Krishna's form is the ultimate of all that is to be attained. So to further make that point, he quotes this verse, not like implied. That form is the ultimate of all that is to be attained. This is what Brahma practically is trying to say here. All the other forms, all respect to them, but this is the ultimate, the supreme personality of God, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Try to keep this Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam in the backdrop of all these prayers, because that's what Brahma is realizing here. And also Jiva Goswami, in his commentary, Lagu Vaishnav Toshani, he has a commentary to the 10th canto. He's paraphrasing Brahma. Generally, the Goswamis do this paraphrasing in their purpose, like to shed further light. So he paraphrases Brahma in the following way: almost worthy of worship, again, Idya, you are worthy of praise because today I have seen the whole material and spiritual realms enter into and emerge from you, the Supreme Brahman, composed of power and sweetness. Therefore, I praise you. So another way of why he's praising Krishna, what he's finding in those forms, in that form. So many forms, material realms, spiritual realms, everything coming from that. And interestingly, he said, you are the Supreme Brahman composed of power, which means Aishvarya, and sweetness. So again, Brahma is having more and more realization of this sweetness side and becoming more and more inclined towards the Madhurya. And Jiva Goswami said, but however, to this Krishna may reply, now comes this in between the lines dialogue that are classical in our Goswamis, especially in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but Jiva Goswami here is also sharing. Krishna may reply to Brahma, haven't you already attained me in my forms of Brahman and Paramatma? In that regard, Brahma invokes two modifiers to further clarify this point. Abrabapushe, you who have a body like a cloud, as we mentioned. So like implying that's different from Brahman, Paramatma, and Tadidambaraya, whose garments are like lightning. No, like to specify, no, I refer to Bhagavan and this particular form of Bhagavan. So since we invoke this in between the line, let's go to and close with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Sarartha Darshani, which are like, I'm biased towards his commentary. That's very unique, very sweet, and lots of this in between the lines. No, what's going on in between the lines of one verse and dialogues in between this Krishna here, Krishna and Brahma, but in every single section, Krishna and the gopis. So really expanding on the content very sweetly. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying some things before the in between dialogue. Like you are a body similar to a cloud. That's an interesting point that will be further made in the next verse. We can say Krishna has a body like a cloud, or Krishna is a body like a cloud. Because why? He's not different from his body. We are not this body, but Krishna is his body. You cannot make a difference between Krishna and Krishna's body. Both are spiritual reality, basically. So somehow we can understand this expression, Abrabapuse, you are a body similar to a cloud. You don't have a body, you are. And also he says that means that he removes the heat of the earth's distress, like the cloud and the rain is showering, the cloud showering rain and creates like relief if one is affected by the heat on earth. And by Krishna's being present on earth, that he's here, by his presence with his cloud-like body, he's raining and creating relief, raining mercy and creating relief on the inhabitants and earth, Brahma being not from earth, but being affected by that mercy here. And then your garments are like lightning, Tadid Ambaraya. Vishwanath says that this modifier combined with Abrabapuse, with body like a cloud, signifies that Krishna is giving life to the Chataka bird-like devotees. There's a play of word here. Like basically he's raining, like rain gives life on this world. The devotees, what I mentioned before, Paritranaya Sadhanam. The Chataka-like devotees are just living on what comes from above. They're only living for Krishna, depending on his mercy. He's raining mercy in them. Then, if Krishna says, now comes the unique dynamics of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. If Krishna says, but isn't it that Sri Vaikunteshwar and others are like this too? Remember, Krishna is playing, he's fully absorbing his Nara Lila in Vrindavan. He's not like, I am God, here I am. So Brahma is praising, like, you are almost worshipable. But Krishna replies in Mugdata, like very naive, transcendental naivete. But all that you are saying here is not pertaining to Narayan, Vaikunteshwar, and so many other. To expect in this reply, as we know, Brahma will mention dissimilarities from these forms, like the Gunjamala, peacock feather, vanamala, which are only present in Sri Krishna in Vrindavan. Srinath Chakravarti, in between, let me add this, he also is sharing the same idea. He said, he's paraphrasing Krishna, Srinath Chakravarti saying him to Brahma, one who is praiseworthy is indeed praised. So who I am, the son of a cowherd, worthy and praised by you, Brahma? You yourself, Brahma, Krishna saying, you have just said that I'm the son of Nanda Maharaj. So I'm the son of a cowherd, and you are Brahma. So why you are saying that I am praiseworthy? I think it should be the opposite. In this way, Krishna is further bewildering Brahma, if you will. But also inviting him to, this is what Sakya Rasa is about. You want Sakya with me? Well, I behave in certain ways in that context, basically. So gradually, Brahma is having a further glimpse of all this. And in that regard, of course, when Krishna is saying, I'm not worthy of praise, in reply to that, Brahma is saying here, Idya. No? Idya means, oh, you are worshipable Lord. No? You should be praised, actually. And actually praising any other person apart from you, Srinath Chakravarti says, Artavad. Artavad means like, what do you say in English? Like bland glorification. Like superficial. It's not deep. It's like, But praising you is entirely according to the truth. All praises should go with you, Brahma. And Krishna, again, I am the formless Brahma. Now Krishna invokes Samashparya. I am the formless Brahma. Can I be praised as such? Maybe? No? As Brahma? What do you think, Brahma? So in this regard, Brahma says, Abrabapuse, Srinath Chakravarti mentions. No, you who are that dark light body like a cloud, that's who I'm referring to. In Brahman, there's no difference, there's no body, there's nobody there. I'm pointing to you, you are the most worshipful. But Krishna replies, then is Narayan to be praised? Because Narayan has a similar color. And Brahma denies this by mentioning, again, Gunjamala, peacock feather, Vanamal, and flute, that only are found in Krishna. Also, since we mentioned Gunjamala, the word Gunja Batamsa in the verse refers to these Gunja earrings. Interestingly, the Acharya Srinath Chakravarti mentioned this can be taken as evocative. Again, we are entering into some Sanskrit technicalities here, but basically means it can mean, like again, Gunja berries decorating the ear, or Gunja Batamsa can mean, oh, you who are the ornament of transcendental sound. Oh. So Gunja also can refer to Abhyakta Shabda or Shabda Brahma, transcendental sound. So Sanskrit lends itself for that. So it's interesting because the very word that refers to one little fruit, if you will, also speaking about transcendental sound according to context. So they are saying that you can also this can also mean that Brahma is telling Krishna, and it's both of them are correct. It's not that one thing is wrong and the other is real. All of them are simultaneously applicable. You have Gunja berries decorating your ears, or you are the ornament of transcendental sound. It's not that Gunja berries are your ornament, but you are the ornament of Sabda Brahma, which Sabda Brahma is another way of saying sound revelation, the revelation that comes through Shastra. And you are the ultimate ornament of Shastra, if you will. You are the ultimate point in point. The Bhagavatam says, Param Bhushana 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 Bhushanangam. You are the ornaments of your ornaments. Many, many things that the Bhagavatam are saying. Also, Paripicha, now we'll go to some of these alternative meanings of some words. Paripicha, which generally refers to peacock feather. If you apply Paripicha modifying Bapuse refers to the body, Bapu refers to body. Modifying the body of Krishna, this is something you can do with Sanskrit a lot. One word modifies one or can modify other, and it creates so many meanings. So if you take Paripicha modifying Bapuse, mean in which body the face is serene and which has a trick, which has magic, that has an increase all around. Pari means all around. Or also means you whose tricks expand everywhere. Tricks. Like you said the other day, Krishna is a trickster, divine trickster. So Paripicha can refer to, again, peacock feather decorating your head, or you have a body which is full of magic, basically. No, you who are a very tricky personality, no, transcendentally tricky. You are a trickster. So pari means around, like what you say parikram, or pari refers to something like around something or everywhere. So again, you whose tricks expand everywhere. Brahma is starting to realize this. I mean, he just had a very comprehensive like experience of that, no, of Krishna's energy and Yogamaya and so on, and many more to come, if you will. Also, Sanmukaya, the word Sanmukaya in the verse, who refers to his face, which is a very beautiful face. You have a very very, very beautiful face. Sanmukaya also can refer san, you can connect that with sat, and that applies to the sadhus, to the devotees. So Sanmukaya, apart from meaning beautiful face, will mean in which the face is for the devotees. No? Like implying Krishna's face is for his devotees. He's facing his devotees. No? He's always looking in that direction, and his face is for them, basically. No? The main part, if you will, of the body, the face, no? He's looking unto them, and he's dedicating his face to, he's glancing onto them, and they are looking at him, and so on. I mean, so many implications. We can just give one lecture. What does it mean that Krishna's face is for his devotees? That's just a whole series. So I'm in quite an anxiety here, trying to summarize all this. But that's a healthy anxiety, because that's you have a glimpse of how much is in Revelation, that there's no end to that. So we have this hope that, okay, we'll be in eternity, for eternally speaking about this, and there will be no end for that. There's a place for eternally, again, Kirtaniya Sadahari Katayantastamam Nityam. So one more argument before finishing. Finally, Krishna may say at this point to Brahma, you Brahma, you were born from Narayan, Garbhodakshai Vishnu and the lotus there. So why do you abandon him? Krishna saying, you are eulogizing, you say? Me. No? Like Krishna presents it like, we are different. Why you are abandoning him and eulogizing me? And in response to that, Brahma is saying here, Abra. And Abra, interestingly, apart from the general meaning, means he who sustained Narayan. Again, I don't want to torture with the technicalities of Sanskrit, but A will refer to Narayan. And Bra is a Sanskrit root for sustaining. So it means you who sustain Narayan. And that will be shown in very famous verse, 14th verse of this chapter, where Narayan will be described by Brahma as an Anga of Krishna. Not the opposite. Krishna is the Angi, Narayan is an Anga of Krishna. So this idea of Abra means this point, and that's why how Brahma replies, that's why I'm elogizing you, and I have left Narayan. I have not left Narayan. I'm realizing Narayan is an Anga of yours, basically. And additionally, also the commentators mentioned that, remember, Brahma is attracted to Sakya, sometimes called the Balya Lila, or the childhood pastimes of Krishna. So he will refer to his attraction by defining some of these elements that are so typical to the age of Krishna that corresponds with Sakya. He said, Kavala Vitra Vishana Venu Lakshma Sriye. Now you have this morsel of how do you say, a mouthful of rice and yogurt in your hands, that just taken from the picnic with your friends. In your left hand, that pretty Sakya-like, breaking all etiquette. You have this staff, this horn, all these attributes that also your friends have. Almost Brahma is saying, I'd like to have those with me as well. I'd like to be decorated with those as well. You have a flute, the garment, and again, all these Brahma is considering Lakshma Sriye, which means uncommon attributes, very beautiful attributes. Sriye means beautiful, and Lakshma means like Lakshana, like characteristics. So basically, Brahma is praying here, Krishna's praising here, Krishna's Dvibhuj above Narayan Chaturbhuj, saying, oh, this human-like form of yours with two arms, and in each arm, a morsel of food here, a stick there, is so charming, so enchanting. How you dress. I mean, generally we know someone, if you want to put it like that, one of the ways of knowing someone is how the person dresses and what the person eats. So here Brahma is addressing those two elements, no? How Krishna is sitting, left hand, totally. He's a god of informality. How he's dressed, that's the charm of Nara Lila. And again, Brahma is discovering this increased charm that he's feeling more and more. And then he said Mridu Pade, just to finish. Mridu Pade, which means you have tender feet. So again, tender feet means feet that are suitable for a small child. As we mentioned, my Guru Maharaj mentioned before, still not too heavy, too big. The marks of the foot soles are not yet too clear. No? So these are feet that correspond with Sakya, with the age of Krishna, in which he's not so much developed, and that fully correspond, this Poganda age that Krishna is about to enter with Sakya. So again, of course, it is said that Brahma is kind of starting to discover all this. So he's not overtly saying here that. He's not saying, I don't know, Krishna, you are a child, or you are just a child. He's praising him with Aishvarya, because still Brahma has lots of respect for Krishna, his master, guru, father, the almighty God, and so on. Still the Aishvarya element is prominent here, but he started to have this glimpse of, oh, tender feet. No, you are the all worshipable God with tender feet. No? So gradually the Aishvarya will recede to the background and give place to more and more, no, prominence of this intimacy that he wants to attain. And also, to say that Mridu Pade also connotes Krishna's many qualities, because the word Mridu means soft, and Pade means feet, but can mean many other things. And Pade can mean like platform or position, situation in which one is. So Krishna is in a platform of softness, if you will. No, everything about him is soft, basically. No, he has butter-like heart, if you will. No, he's melting. No? So the point is, the softness is not limited to the feet. But of course, this is very famous, the softness of Krishna's foot soles, and how the Brajavasis meditate on that according to their own feelings. The gopis, it's another chapter. I don't want to go there, that may be too long, but at the end of the Gopi Gita, the gopis are praising Krishna. I pray into Krishna in that way. Like when we think about your foot soles, your soft foot soles, walking without shoes, taking the cows to eat, or we are tortured about the idea of the pain you may have been feeling. So we are thinking about offering our breasts, so you can put your feet there. Our breast is the softest part in our bodies. So we're thinking, what's the softest thing we can offer to give you relief? But your feet are so soft that in comparison to that softness, our breasts are so hard. So we at the end think that won't be a relief to your soft feet. So at the end of the day, we continue crying, thinking about how much your soft feet may be suffering and things like this. But again, this idea here is that everything about Krishna is soft. And finally, just to conclude our explanation, this last part of the verse that Brahma is saying, you are the son of a cowherd, which basically means Nanda Sutta, you're Nanda Nandan, you are the son of Nanda Maharaj, the king of the cowherds. So the Acharyas explained that by saying that, Brahma is implying that actually all the previous elements he just mentioned that are so unique to Krishna are automatically included in this idea. You are the son of Nanda Maharaj. No? When Krishna is described as the son of Nanda Maharaj, immediately all the other things follow, because we know, the son of Nanda Maharaj has all this type of, he's a cowherd, he has this, he has that. And Baladev Vidyabhushan in his commentary mentions this line is further proof that Krishna is actually the son of Nanda Maharaj. Because sometimes it's this idea, he's the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, and so on. So our Goswamis have explored, mined the Shastra and shown, no, actually, an expansion of Krishna was born in Mathura from Vasudeva and Devaki, and the original Krishna was born simultaneously from Yashoda and Nanda, and the expansion merged. We spoke, I think, the other day about that. So basically, this verse is establishing this superiority of Krishna's form. And let me conclude by sharing one last word by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because he will mention here, since we just mentioned Krishna is the son of Nanda and Yashoda, not of Vasudeva and Devaki, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur will say, Actually, this verse is not only establishing the superiority of Nanda above Vasudeva, but of Krishna's sweetness about Vishnu's sweetness, or about Krishna's Aishwarya even. So he says like this: Brahma's description reveals the superiority of, now comes the list. First, the lowly Gunja berries, lowly, quote unquote, the lowly Gunja berries of Braj are to the precious jewels of Vaikuntha, the superiority of them. The forest garland of white flowers and leaves around Krishna's neck is superior to those made of the Parijata flowers from Swargalok. Second. Third, by mentioning the morsel of yogurt rice in Krishna's hand, his stick and horn, Brahma indicates the superiority of Krishna's cowherd boy form over all others. 4. In mentioning Krishna's soft feet, Brahma indicates that those wandering in the forest of Vrindavan become filled with ecstasy upon seeing Krishna's footprints, not available in Vaikuntha. And finally, by stating that Krishna is the son of a cowherder, Brahma shows the superior fortune of Nanda over Vasudeva. So we see how different truths are being established in the very first verse of the whole Brahma-stuti. So in conclusion, just to finish, this chapter is relating how Brahma, although he's maintaining a mood of reverence, as we will see, he's not just, again, full-blown Brajavasi from one moment to the other. While maintaining this Aishwarya, he gradually is immersing himself more and more in this ocean of Krishna's Madhurya. Madhurya, I mean intimacy, not romantic love, but intimacy in the context of Sakya. So when Brahma is praying here to Krishna, I praise you, again, know me, so I can attain you. Remember, I can attain you how? In the form of Bal Gopal, in the form of a child, in the form like ideal for Sakya Bhav. So in one sense, the whole purpose of the Brahma-stuti is stated right here from the very first verse. Why Brahma is praying. These are the prayers of Brahma. When you pray for something. You have some intention to attain through your prayer. So what's the intention of Brahma? I want to attain you, Krishna, in this particular form, this particular relationship. So from verse 1, and with great eagerness, Brahma is praying in this verse. And this verse somehow summarizes the whole stuti. This is very classical in series, in this type of sections of verses. Generally, many times, not always, but the first verse conglomerates what will be like unpacked in the other verses. So that will happen here. No? The whole Brahma-stuti is summarized here, establishing superiority of Krishna above other forms and the defining characteristics and the traction of Brahma in that particular direction. But again, Brahma will elaborate further. We have still 39 verses forward. And he will elaborate further also to make sure that his ideal is philosophically supportable. Not just like speculation or some emotional way, but is supported by proper Shastra. So it's interesting because while Brahma is praying, he himself is like, testing his bhav under the light of Siddhanta. Now I'm feeling this, but let's see how much what I feel is legal, if you will, is in the parameters of Tattva and Siddhanta. So he will be pronouncing all these prayers that actually will be further confirming, yes, what you feel is real, what you long for is supported by Shastra. Because remember, Brahma is still bewildered, feeling something, but not sure like if it's correct, as we mentioned today. Your beauty is so great, I love you, can I say that? I'm correct with this, I'm feeling this, I'm having this discovering, awakening. So Brahma himself, through his prayers, is further finding confirmation to, yes, this is what I want. So this expresses here in the first verse, but again, Brahma himself will prove to himself more. Yeah, this is the whole thing. And we will see eventually how this unfolds and how this culminates in the last verse, but he's just almost in ecstasy, passing out, glorifying the Brajabhav of the Brajavas and the Gopas in particular. But today we'll finish here. In first verse, sorry for the extension, but actually I tried to summarize as much as I could. And next class we'll continue with verse number 2, basically.
Could you talk about Brahma-Haridas, and it strikes me that in that Leela, in Lord Chaitanya's Leela, there's no Sakya Ras there really, I mean, with Brahma-Haridas. Can you kind of explain that a little bit? Because is Brahma coming to earth as a simple soul, shall we say, and being humbled?
I mean, in Gaur Leela, there's in one sense no Sakya Ras, in the sense that the standard of, I mean, Gaur Leela is a different Leela.
Right.
It's the same Leela and it's different at the same time, because Mahaprabhu is Krishna, but in a different mood. So Navadvip is Vrindavan in a different mood. Gaur Leela is VRAJA Leela in a different mood. So according to the mood in which Bhagavan is situated, all the servants adjust to that. No, it's not that I will relate to Krishna as I like. No, I will relate to him according to the mood he is in. So as we know, Mahaprabhu in Navadvip Leela, Gaur Leela is a very unique mood, very specific experiment. I like to think of Gaur Leela as a laboratory. No, laboratory is it? When you go to make some experiment, Krishna is trying to taste Radha Bhav. That's a very risky experiment and very complex one. So the devotees need to adjust to that and assist accordingly. So Mahaprabhu is in certain mode that the servants have to adjust and serve him according to that mode, basically. So there's no conflict in rasa. And the mood, of course, in Gaur Leela is dasya. No, everyone is serving Mahaprabhu in dasya. I mean, a few exceptions, you may speak about Sachima and so on, but generally, and the window of opportunity for us will be in dasya. But the dasya we find in Gaur Leela is tinged with sakya. So in that sense, we could speak about the presence of sakya in Gaur Leela. It's not the dasya of Vaikuntha or Narayan. It's more the dasya that we find in Vrindavan. There's dasya in Vrindavan also. So there's some corresponding form of and the dasya in Vrindavan is mixed with sakya. So some version of it adjust in Gaur Leela accordingly to the need of the moment. So in that way, we could say there is some sakya in Gaur Leela. No, it's a type of sakya which also it's a sakya. It's a friendship. It's an intimacy and confidence mixed with servanthood, which somehow is what we are supposed to develop with our guru as well. Rupa Goswami said, Bishram Bena Guru Seva. You are to serve your guru with intimacy and confidence. Of course, it's not just like a cheap thing, because you can try to be confident and intimate and be familiar, and familiarity breeds contempt. There has to be reverence and servanthood, but eventually the relationship has to evolve to one of friendship, a type of friendship. Again, not friendship. There are different types of friendship, not like just equals. But there is, like with one's father, the relationship somehow ideally evolves into a type of friendship. No? The father is still the father, and the son is still the son. That's clear. But there is some type of friendship that is very desirable. So guru, in one sense, is a kind of spiritual father. So ideally, the relationship has to evolve to a type of friendship that still retains this, of course, notion: you are my father, you are my master, I'm your servant. But there is some sweet intimacy and confidence in the relationship. So that's similar to what's we are supposed to express in Gaur Leela towards Mahaprabhu, Dasya with Sakya. So that will be the Sakya, I will say, playing itself out there. No?
I think there's also the example of Nityananda and Haridas when they're going out to try and convert
Jagai Madai.
Jagai Madai. That's a very funny Leela, actually.
Yeah.
Very humorous. So I was thinking there is Sakya, but it isn't necessarily with Lord Chaitanya. It's more with
among the associates, if you will.
Nityananda and his Dwadas Gopals, they have a very humorous
I was mostly speaking in connection to Mahaprabhu himself.
Yes.
But among associates themselves, there may be another type of mood, if you will, especially like the examples you mentioned. I mean, if we want to go to Dwadasa Gopals and all that, of course, I mean, what to do?
I hadn't remembered that, and then I thought, it struck me. I was listening. In my mind, I was reading Chaitanya Bhagavat and that whole pastime, the Haridas is saying, you got to slow down, we're going to kill if we keep doing this, And Nityananda's like, yeah, let's go do it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he's dragging Haridas along
Yeah.
into his kind of madness,
And then Haridas is complaining to Mahaprabhu, like, you send me with this crazy fellow to preach to people, and he goes to the worst possible place. They're almost killing us. And Nityananda Prabhu is like totally in another dimension.
Haridas can't run as fast.
Yeah, he was older.
Nityananda can run.
Exactly.
Being chased, but he's running behind.
Yeah.
And even Nityananda Advaita, when
that's another separate chapter. There are so many Nityananda versus Advaita Lila versus quote unquote. Very interesting. I mean, whatever is Nityananda Prabhu, there will be no matter who's the second party, but Nityananda will invoke Sakya somehow because he's Balaram. He's the very spirit of this and the deity of presiding deity of Hasya Ras. This Loktar Rasa. So
Raghunath Das when the Panihati festival when he puts his foot in his head.
You're a thief. I will chastise you. Yeah.
I was thinking with the Prabhu, you asked that question. So with Haridas and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as far as Sakya,
right?
And so Brahma has created the offense, so he remains very humble in front of Mahaprabhu, in a humble position. But you see, Mahaprabhu is sometimes, some of the Leela you read, he's relating to Haridas in a very friendly way.
Mm-hmm.
In a very friendly way. He would every day take prasadam for him from Jagannath Puri and take prasadam for him.
Mm-hmm. He even danced when he passed away. I mean, he danced with him and he danced.
So Mahaprabhu was relating in a friendly way. I think Haridas was shy. I'm an offender.
I was hearing that. So Madhumangala was the son of Krishna and Balaram's teacher,
Sandipani
Muni, and when he was, he asked Krishna to bring him back from the dead. His son, and that when he came back, he called him Kali Guru, Kali. So does that mean friend? So it was kind of like.
I mean, who called him?
Krishna called Madhumangala Kali Guru.
Oh, interesting.
So,
I didn't.
Do you know what Kali means? I tried to Google it. It wasn't a Sanskrit dictionary, but one thing said like fierce warrior. Another thing said soft friend. But
Kelly has to do a lot with game. No? Yeah, very time we use the word pastime. Sometimes it's basically like a synonym for Lila, basically. Like Kelly. I mean, I'm not saying that's only that, but just what I know. But
yes, Punjabi Kelly means play.
Okay.
Play.
Yeah, I have here the Monier Williams dictionary say Kelly. I mean, some words: play, sport, amorous sport, pastime, amusement, and on another line is like disguise or concealment, and on another line it can refer to the earth. So again, Sanskrit is so much about the context, and then the full meaning comes. So, I mean, Madhumangal may deserve many of those titles. He's the guru of play, the guru of pastime, the guru of amusement. Yeah, he creates so many of those moments constantly. Yeah. Okay, Sri Madhumangala ki jai, Sri Haridas Brahma Haridas Thakur ki jai, Sri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sri Man Mahaprabhu ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Gaur Nityananda ki jai, Shri Brajanand Haladarju ki jai, Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Brahma-stuti ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Pramananda Hari Bol. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Hari Bol.